Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Bitcoin Morning Brief. It is April 9th. And Tone, you kind of look like the official Obama picture that was recently painted with the ivy in the background. Where are you?
I am at a coffee shop not far from where I'm staying. This is around Florida and 19th Street for you would-be kidnappers out there. That's where I am, out in San Francisco. Yeah, it's good. Bright and early this morning after yesterday's farm video, which was a little weird and different. Yeah, back to normal schedule. It's about, 7 a.m. here in San Francisco, and we're back on track.
Perfect. Giacomo, how's everything going?
It's going fine. I'm in Italy. Address for kidnappers is a little bit more complicated, but if they PM me on Twitter, I will tell them everything.
Jimmy, how was your weekend?
I have not been kidnapped, so that's good. Yeah.
I guess we're still all here, although here we go. Tone, now we're gonna know where you're at. So you want to talk about what's going on?
Yes, I am speaking at Plug and Play Silicon Valley meetup tomorrow night. About 275 people have already signed up. Oh, looks like 291 people have already signed up. I have no idea how much room they have over at Plug and Play, but they wanted me to plug this for it. So let's see if we can break, I like going around the world and breaking Andreas's records at meetups. So let's see if we can do that here, though I don't actually know what Andreas's record is. So let's see if we can get like 300 or 400 people over at Plug and Play. I'm also not sure what I'm going to talk about yet, so we'll figure that out by tomorrow night.
Well, maybe it'll be B-Trash with our first story. I guess we'll find out.
Let's hope.
Just kidding. All right. ZCash promoting Twitter account at Bitcoin has been suspended. Internet debates death of free speech. So the headline says it all. Then Roger Ver tweeted that the suspension of the @Bitcoin account is the death of free speech, as it's said in the title. So in this case, I do believe that stealing the Bitcoin name when Ver and Bcash are not Bitcoin is fraudulent, and that he is not and should not be allowed to have the @Bitcoin. So there's three big layers of free speech. One, the Constitution. Two, the interpretation of that of the Supreme Court over the years. Three, the interpretation of 1 and 2 of how they interact with it. So Jimmy, Twitter's now walking this fine line about how they're going to be allowed how they're going to allow people to access and express themselves in the Twitter sphere.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a couple of tweet storms yesterday about this. I mean, all of this arguing over like the Bitcoin name and all this stuff, I don't actually think is that important. I think we're all trying to protect this hypothetical ignorant noob who doesn't know what the hell they're doing and just listens to the first thing that they see. That's not how most people operate. Most people do some research and find out what it is that they're investing in before they put money on it. The people that don't tend to lose it pretty quickly anyway. So I don't know. It's a big brouhaha about nothing, in my opinion. But I mean, yeah, that said, what's Twitter doing? I don't know. Like if whoever has the @Bitcoin account should be able to tweet whatever, but I don't know. That's just sort of the libertarian in me.
Giacomo, do you believe that this was the right move by Twitter?
Overall, yes. I think there are several layers here, as you also said. So basically, there is the layers of the right of a private platform to do whatever they want. Roger Ver has a lot of problems understanding what free speech means and what censorship means. He speaks about censorship about Reddit and about Twitter. These are not these are not government agencies that decide to shut you up. These are private platforms that can implement whichever kind of moderation policy they want, or users of private platforms like the Reddit operators that can decide any kind of policy they want. If not, it's just like I can go to the New York Times and I can just ask the editor to print my love letter on the first page, because otherwise that's censorship. No, it's not. It's a private initiative. They can decide to do whatever they want. So this is the first level. It's always legit for a private platform to choose any kind of moderation policy, even when I don't like it. For example, I didn't like when Twitter censored, I don't know, Milo Yiannopoulos, for example. I find it funny. So, but even if I don't like it, it's legit. Then there is the second layer, which is even if you grant them the freedom to do that, do you like the fact that they did it? I do like, because on this topic, I don't completely agree with Jimmy about the battle around the name being mostly irrelevant. I think Bitcoin is a solid technology, but had also a very, very wide social attack surface, and some kind of prophecies can be self-fulfilling. Like if enough people believes that Bitcoin is not Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin validating nodes should not be operated, and that Bitcoin, there is some kind of self-interested tendency to follow the right path for users, and Bitcoin try to leverage that. We don't have to defend Bitcoin only by setting cultures and taboos and politics and policies, but there is also a very strong social layers. And I think that allowing straight up cyber squatting, like I don't know, think about Linux project. You have Linux project, and then some people create a forks of Linux, and they buy the Linux handler on Twitter and linux.com, and they're trying to make the users download a forked version of Linux. That's clearly misleading. And even if there are not many noobs that are falling for that, I think that it's wrong to allow ourselves to such a low standards. We are moving the Overton window, like everything is legit, everything is fine. We don't need to take like enforcement actions against Roger Ver, but we need to be strong about calling out cyber squatting attempts. So I think that in both layers, I am more than happy that this happened. And also, it was very fun yesterday to see this guy from Turkey taking over for a while the under. It was a big funny mess.
Absolutely. Tone, in the traditional news sources, if you see Forbes, if you see Bloomberg, they only typically are talking about price. And I remember one specific example where a man who works for one of the largest VCs in Silicon Valley was very confused with the FUD around Coinbase when Bcash was entered. And he asked me, what's happening to my Bitcoin? There is a lot of confusion. So those entering the space who are trying to learn more, that are either just learning about price, they may obviously go to these handles or bitcoin.com to try to learn more about the tech behind it. Do you have issues with this?
No, I clearly don't have issue with Twitter blocking the Bitcoin account because it wasn't Bitcoin, right? Also, I completely agree with Jameson Lopp in his tweets back to Roger that this is not censorship. This is, a private company deciding, what they want on their platform. And they were misleading a lot of people. So the one answer I have to, also, I slightly disagree with Jimmy, where Jimmy said that people will, make their own decisions and do research. I mean, the whole BitConnect incident kind of misproves that, based on how many people, lost all their money in BitConnect. However, BitConnect blew up fairly quickly, which I like. I think that I knew BitConnect was going to blow up very, very quickly now, which is why I never bothered speaking out against BitConnect. It was too obvious of a scam. Now, Ethereum, on the other hand, is not as obvious as BitConnect, and it's going to end the same way, but a lot more people are going to get hurt because they just don't understand that Ethereum is way closer to BitConnect than it is to Bitcoin. So yeah, I think it is misleading, but I think time will still hopefully win out to the point where, no one ever goes to internet.com to learn about internet. So no one should really be going to bitcoin.com or the Bitcoin Twitter handle to learn about Bitcoin. It'll be just, there as a thing. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, no, I hate the fact that it's so misleading and people are confused and people continue to lose money by sending to the wrong accounts. So the sooner Bcash goes away, the better everybody off will be.
Can I just interject for a second? Like I get that it's confusing, but that sort of stuff is all over the internet about anything. I mean, you could talk about like is the Earth round or flat? And there's like tons of pages about how the Earth is flat or whatever. And when's the last time you actually went and searched for something and went to the .com domain name? I mean, like if you're looking for like shoes. Or like a particular shoe, do you go to the .com? Usually, you just like do a Google search or something like that to go and do it. I mean, I think this stuff is overblown. I agree that a lot of people fell for the BitConnect scam, but those are people that you really don't want in Bitcoin. I am totally not for protecting people against themselves. And if any of these people do even a little bit of research, they'll find videos exactly like this where people say, you know what, Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin. And you have one side saying something, the other side saying something. Now you actually have to do research and find out what the heck happened, instead of just like believing one thing or the other. And that's the kind of investor I think you need in Bitcoin, and that's the kind of investor that actually holds it, not one that is easily swayed by like a single account on Twitter or like a single website. It's the people that actually go out and talk to people, do some research on their own, maybe even read the white paper and things like that. That's the kind of investor you want. The other type of person that just sort of looks at the name and invests straight away based on like the name, well, they're the people that get into Tron or something like that. Like it's. I don't care for those investors. They can do what they want, obviously, but they're not the ones that give Bitcoin value.
Interesting. And so moving on to a news story that had investors who actually ended up giving $1 billion for their Series D, I'm pretty sure about. Last comment to Giacomo. I did appreciate the I think it was the third tweet, which was Turkey is so cool on that Bitcoin. That was pretty funny. Okay. Coinbase ready to excel. 3 massive developments. So the new developments are 1, a venture fund for crypto startups. 2, withdrawal support for more Bitcoin forks. 3, entering talks with the SEC to become an officially licensed broker. So the largest exchange in the world, who's raised massive amounts of money, yet they consistently get things wrong, right? They keep trying to catch up to those that are doing things right, and they're always behind, always waiting for other people to make intelligent decisions, later try to do it themselves and screw up. Tone, are these 3 more chances for them to screw up?
I think 2 of the 3 are definitely chances for them to screw up. The third one is up in the air, right? So like Bitcoin hard forks, like the forks of Bitcoin, that's over. Like that's done. Bcash was their one and only shining light. B Gold and whatever, B Private, I mean, they were duds. The rest of Bitcoin forks, they're probably going to be duds. That's it. Like they screwed up the one and only fork that actually mattered for their customers, which was the Bcash fork. They screwed that up, and now they're going to waste money and effort instead of setting a straight up policy that all future forks will not be honored, like setting some kind of a policy, because the rest of them will not be on the kind of scale that the Bcash was. So that's a waste of effort. As far as CoinDesk putting in an investment arm, that's just stupid. Like Coinbase, they're already screwing everything else up with their business that they're supposed to be competent in. What the hell do they know about investing? Look, guys, I keep saying people, VCs, they're professionals, and being professionals, they do not beat the market. They are basically there. There's a reason why you have qualified investors. Most VCs do not beat returns of the market, but people that give their money to VCs don't have a problem like losing that money because they want to support speculative technology. Coinbase should leave the VC stuff to the actual VCs, not doing it themselves. Use your resources to actually make your exchange better and not waste those resources playing the VC game. As for the SEC stuff, I mean, they kind of have to do that They want to be professional, but they already screwed up, right? They already have Ethereum on their platform. So the first thing they need to do is figure out, is Ethereum a security or not? I believe that it is. Well, let's see what the SEC says. The SEC might be too, chicken shit to call Ethereum a security, which it obviously is. So we'll see how that goes. And it has to be the only route they're going to. It kind of makes sense, but the jury is going to be out on that because the SEC still has no idea what is or isn't a security in the crypto space. So let's see what happens there. But yeah, the Coinbase should have already been keeping track and reporting. Like Coinbase should give you your tax breakdown. You shouldn't have to do it yourself, like all the other exchanges do. So that one's inevitable. And we'll see. I mean, they're based out of the US. They're going to have to go the SEC route for their exchange. So that one's inevitable.
Right. I agree with you, Tone. When it comes to M&A or VC, the general rule of thumb is buy what you know, but it seems in this crypto world, it's more a matter of buying who you know. And I just don't think they're going to end up getting this right. Jimmy, the debate around this forks are huge, with a lot of people believing that this will affect Bcash. Tone commented on this a bit, but can you give us your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that they're doing this for legal liability reasons. If they don't, they have a fiduciary duty to everyone that keeps their coins on Coinbase, and that's not a trivial number of people. If you don't give them their Bitcoin hard fork, then they're going to get sued. And I'm sure their legal department was like, yeah, make sure that they get their forks or else we will get sued. And they're going to demand their Bitcoin Diamond or Super Bitcoin or something like that. So it's, at least from my perspective, the logical thing to do to reduce their liability. The interesting thing is that people can sort of cause more liability by forking more and more. This is why I think decentralized exchanges will eventually come. Because of issues like this, you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, and because of the fiduciary duty you have to the people that are storing their Bitcoins with you. Otherwise, it looks like you're just sort of taking money from them for free. So as far as the venture arm, this is a normal thing for sort of bigger companies that have a hard time figuring out how to grow. And that to me is the bad sign here. So there's like something like Google Ventures, for example. They have a venture arm because they're already really big and they need to grow in some quick way, or they need to sort of sustain their rate of growth. So they invest in a bunch of startups, and even if one of them hits pretty big, they can make a lot of money. Yahoo did that years ago with Alibaba, and obviously that paid off quite well. So I don't blame them for doing it, but it's also kind of a bad signal to the market in the sense that they think that their period of hyper growth is over, and that they're doing this because they're sort of out of innovations, and they're relying on other startups to do the innovating for them. So I mean, I'm in a way it makes sense because that's the way they've been behaving, sort of like a big company / dinosaur, and like very slow to upgrade things, and having sort of a very stale code base or something like that. So I don't blame them for doing that if that is indeed where they are as a company. I mean, they have been around for like 5 years. Maybe they are the 800-pound gorilla. But the fact that they have a venture arm signals to me that they don't think they can grow very much from here on in, and that they're investing in startups so that they can get more innovations out of them. The fact that I think there was a rumor a few weeks ago about how they were going to buy out like Earn.com, formerly known as 21. That also tells me that they're looking for other ways to grow other than through organic growth of the cryptocurrency market. Last one is just normal for any big company. You do want to sort of like appease regulators whenever you can. I personally don't. I mean, like that's just sort of a tax that you have to pay as any sort of business in a country with a lot of regulation like we have. So that's sort of normal to me. But those are my thoughts on the 3 things that Coinbase is doing.
Tone, do you have a response to what Jimmy's been saying?
Just a very quick one, Jimmy. So I agreed with you, and I argued this point that Coinbase had a fiduciary duty to give everyone their Bcash because they did not have a hard fork policy at the time that Bcash was announced, not even at the time that Bcash happened, but at the time where Bcash was like talked about. But now that the Bcash hard fork went through and they botched that, and the like 3 or 4 following hard forks were duds, they can put in a policy that says we no longer, so I mean, if they were Bitcoin supporters, which they're not, right? I mean, they're Bcash supporters. So they like, assuming they actually liked Bitcoin, they could easily put in that policy now.
I don't think that would work, because you've taken possession. You've taken possession, and it's like a lot of these forks, you still get 0.1%, which is not a trivial amount.
But if they have this policy before any future hard fork is announced, people, their customers would know, and they have the ability to take the coins out and do the forks themselves. Like if I was Coinbase, I would put in that policy. But again, like I said, they hate.
I'm not sure that would stand up in a court of law, just because like it's whatever a judge finds fair, and the judge might just say, hey, you know what? Coinbase can't just take the 0.1% off of Bitcoin Diamond or something like that. It's I mean, you could set that policy, but I don't know if it would stand.
No, I'm not saying they would keep it. No. If Coinbase was to keep those hard forks for themselves, then yeah, that's a problem. But they can also do what BitMax did. I mean, BitMax put in a policy saying, hey, we're just gonna sell your Bcash, and we're just gonna credit you the Bitcoin whenever we sell it. So that was BitMax's policy, and no one seemed to really complain. They just like slowly sold off all of the Bcash on behalf of the people, of their customers, and they just credited them the Bitcoin that they sold.
They're also in a different jurisdiction. I think
Correct,
the fiduciary duty is taken a little more seriously in the United States.
Correct. All right. Anyway, we'll move on. Giacomo.
To just cap this off, actually, educationally, and for me, thank you, Giacomo. Relevant to the forks that we're discussing, is Coinbase, in your opinion, a wallet or a custodian?
Yeah, I think that's the question, because Coinbase was initially promoted as a Bitcoin wallet, and there is still people going around saying that they are keeping their Bitcoin on a Coinbase wallet because their mobile app was nice, and they also allow you to send, unlike other exchanges, they allow you to send Bitcoin from your account to another end user account. So in that way, it behaves like a custodian web wallet. And that's very confusing, because if it's a wallet, then probably the requirement, the minimum requirement would be to give the users power to do anything they want to do with their asset. While on the other hand, if it's just an exchange, which actually Coinbase is, just a place where you can buy and sell stuff, and where you can temporarily keep stuff in order to buy and sell. That's completely different. I would say that the requirement to serve any kind of airdropped altcoin, because we talk about forks, but actually when you have a contentious hard fork, what you basically have is just some guy telling people, I'm creating this coin, and I will gift this coin proportionally to everyone which signs any transaction with a private key associated with some kind of Bitcoin possession. And that's just a more general. The problem with supporting that, it's that it is an unbound liability on the custodian. Let's assume that people start to tell, I will gift one free car to everybody who proves he owns more than 3 Bitcoins. I will give a free Lambo because I like big holders. Or there are websites where you can vote with Bitcoin, like when there are some proposition, and you can put your Bitcoin stake on an address or any other, or sign with your private keys in order to support this or that proposition with some kind of proof of stake. Is Coinbase allowed to use the signature keeping the Bitcoin of their clients in order to do stuff like that? Or is it obligated somehow to give the user the possibility to use their private key, their associated private key, in any possible way that somebody else could invent? I think it's important to understand that there is no upper bound to the kind of liability an external party could put on the shoulder of a custodian if we ask the custodians to support any kind of higher drop ever. So it's complicated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Giacomo, for explaining that. So moving on to the anti-petro. So the anti-petro question mark, ZCash is throwing Venezuelans a lifeline. So ZCash partnered with AirTM to promote ZCash as an optional intermediate step when converting bolivars into US dollars. Giacomo, starting back with you, the importance of the story for me is that this is what cryptocurrency was is supposed to do, to allow people to get away from these piranha governments and not allow them to control their lives for money. Alice, I'm totally pointing at you because I know how you feel about governments. So for me, it doesn't matter if it's Zimbabwe or Iran or Venezuela. The point is that this is the promise of cryptocurrency for me. But I think that the crypto ecosystem needs to kind of get their act together for this to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. That's the only point of something as complicated and as inefficient as Bitcoin. The only reason Bitcoin exists is to resist censorship of regulators. That's the main point. Otherwise, we could just use a centralized service like PayPal. If we don't, I mean, the creators of PayPal, X.com, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, originally they wanted a new form of currency without borders, without regulation, without KYC, the money of the internet. They simply weren't allowed to do that, like in the e-gold situation or in the Linden dollar or Liberty Reserve. All these companies, they did want to do something centralized, efficient, and trivial. We had to do Bitcoin because regulators were censoring. So this is the use case, in my opinion, of Bitcoin: permissionless saving, permissionless commerce, permissionless payment, permissionless finance. This is the use case. It is very funny that like the petro, that governments are trying to use a technology which sole purpose was to resist censorship of governments in order to control and manipulate the currency further. I don't think that Venezuelan people should use ZCash at all. It's still an experimental thing. It is a very unstable coin, mostly controlled by a private US-based corporation, which is very, very easy to infiltrate, to corrupt, or to buy off. So I don't think that using ZCash is a good idea whatsoever. I think that Venezuelan people are using Bitcoin for this purpose, to escape financial censorship and financial slavery. And I think that makes sense. Probably it will make more sense with the primary free censorship-resistant money experiment, which is Bitcoin and not these altcoins.
Tone, this startup does conduct KYC reviews. How do you think that this will affect their efficacy?
Well, I just want to go to the general statement. I mean, this goes to our very first but our very first topic, where do people know what the hell they're doing? And the reality is, like, ZCash is a centralized coin. It's a centralized currency. It's a currency created by one guy with a bunch of investors. So the fact that this is a story just bothers me in general. Someone can just call the CEO of a currency and say, hey, can the CEO of this currency help the people of this town? So first of all, this is completely insane. It's basically someone that is a bag holder of ZCash, just wants to make ZCash more popular. Anyone that uses ZCash is basically putting money into the hands of people like Roger Ver and Barry Silbert and all the other, corporate investors that created ZCash as a private currency that is completely centralized. Which I read the first two paragraphs of this article, and I didn't need to read any further. If you just scroll up to the first article, the CEO of ZCash has been asked to help Venezuela. The CEO of ZCash is an American citizen. What do you think happens to him if he actually goes to help Venezuela? Like people are just completely like brain dead, in my opinion. You want to help your country, promote Bitcoin. It's actually decentralized. That's it. Because instead, what you're going to do is you're going to make your people even worse off when they buy a bunch of Zcash and then Zcash goes to zero. Then what are they going to think about real decentralized currencies like Bitcoin? And this is the problem with people in their own personal agendas. People were making fun of me. Like, people were very upset when I said that if you're holding one of these altcoins like Ethereum, even like Zcash, yeah, I have no problem with you losing all of your money and, you know, all of your investor money because you're investing in a scam. People seem to have a problem with me saying that, yet that person that is promoting Zcash wants the same thing for me because all of my money is in Bitcoin. So you promoting Zcash is you telling me that you want me and everyone who I've talked and explained Bitcoin to lose all of our money, right? Because there is no room for multiple decentralized currencies, only room for one, and we only have one. So yeah, so these articles really, really bother me because people have no idea what they're doing.
Jimmy, Zcash to Bitcoin, do you think that this could serve as a catalyst for Bitcoin companies to step in?
I mean, they kind of already have, and as far as they can. I mean, this is an interesting story. I mean, I like Zuko. I think he's a pretty good cryptographer and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't. I'm not sure what he's trying to achieve here. You need a lot of liquidity in order to make this work, to convert bolivars to dollars, and the liquidity isn't there, at least right now. And the liquidity, for the most part, goes towards Bitcoin and other things. So he's kind of playing from way behind. I mean, I guess you know, he can tout the ZK Snarks feature or whatever, but like Tone said, it's a centralized coin. So you know, I'm not sure why you would trust it any more than, say, fiat or the petro or whatever it is that they have over there. I mean, it's an interest. I like the market having choices, but you know, there's, I think, a clear better choice in Bitcoin. Whether or not, you know, the Venezuelan government like cracks down on this or whatever, you know, I feel for the Venezuelan people. Hopefully they get something that's a harder money than the, you know, Venezuelan bolivar, which is like the easiest money ever. You know, it's when I say hard money versus easy money, hard money is very difficult to create. Easy money is very easy to create. Venezuelan bolivar is clearly the easiest money ever. But yeah, I tend to think that this is, I mean, his heart might be in the right place. I'm not sure this is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, just one quick note. If your decentralized project has either A, a CEO, or B, a foundation, profit or nonprofit, with any kind of influence over its development, it's not a decentralized project, people.
Right, Sarah, I was on mute. All right. Thank you guys for those views. So it started with the Rockefellers. Now it's taking on crypto. So Venrock, the VC arm of the Rockefeller family, has partnered with crypto investment group Coin Fund to support cryptocurrency and blockchain business innovation. So these are really big names. And because of that, this has led to a lot of speculation in the crypto community, a lot of FUD. I've heard a lot of statements coming, but they're very smart, shrewd investors, meaning that they're not going to telegraph what they're going to do ever. They're going to quietly take their position. You know, we will have no idea if they're going to short or buy it. They're not going to say it until after the fact. And this is why a hedge fund is set up in this way, that LPs, the limited partners, don't know what is being done until months and months, and usually until the year-end statement comes out. Tone, therefore, in my view, it's meaningless that these big names are talking about it. It only means that they want the publicity to set up their trade.
Yeah, so not only do I agree with everything you said, I'm going to go further and say that Rockefeller is not a big name. It was a big name, like the name Rockefeller, and what were the conspiracy people? The
Rothschild.
No, well, besides the Rothschilds.
Rothschild.
Yeah. Right, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, guys. These were serious players maybe 40, 50 years ago, and the conspiracy theorists are running with these names. Look, guys, the only Maybe the Rockefellers are getting involved because they want their name back in the news. They're not relevant anymore. I'm sorry. There's no conspiracy here. Soros still has a pretty big hedge fund, but he's almost a dinosaur, and he's not. I mean, he can only live so long, right? Like these names are gone. So this is not that big a deal. There's no conspiracy here. They may be taking out positions. You have no idea what are their assets under management. I'm not very familiar with Coin Fund. I have no idea how relevant they are. Jimmy might know more. He's a little, more VC connected than I am. But like, I don't know. I don't think this means anything. I think it's just a way to get in the news. Look, if you have a big family name, you want to stay relevant. You want that name to matter, even though, your grandfather that actually built that name is no longer with you. I mean, Rockefellers don't even own the Rockefeller Center anymore. It was sold off like back in the year 2000. Like, come on, guys. If this family name mattered, they wouldn't be selling off their assets. Just think about it for a minute.
Jimmy, to Tone's comment about VC, we have right here that Venrock and Coin Fund first met when they both went in on YouNow, which then had an ICO. So are they just no idea what's going on? You want to comment?
Well, I mean, I don't know how. It really depends on how much they have under management, and they don't say in this. And obviously, Soros has a ton of money. I don't know how much they have under management, but there are family offices that have way more that have been getting into it beforehand. Anyway, yeah, you should always be a little bit suspicious when rich people make the news, because usually they make the news because they want the public to know. So you have to think about, why would they want the public to know that they are getting into crypto? Maybe they're already invested and they're kind of nervous about the downturn. Maybe they're doing something else and want to give publicity to you now or something like that. There's usually some sort of alternate reason why they're doing something like this, and part of the game is trying to figure out why they put out this press release. I know for a fact that a lot of Wall Street traders, the good ones, they look at news kind of skeptically and try to figure out exactly why somebody would put out that press release about such and such thing, because there's usually a game behind the game. What's the game here? I don't know. I can speculate, but almost certainly it's not that they want people to know that they're getting into cryptocurrency. For exactly what reason, I'm not sure. Same thing with Soros, same thing with a lot of these other hedge funds that sort of announce their position. Like you said, Leah, like you usually don't find out exactly where the money went in a hedge fund or a venture firm until after the actual investment happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we're going to see how this one plays out with Soros, right? He has a trading strategy of reflexivity. But with that, we're not going to know if he thinks it's the top or the bottom until pretty soon. Giacomo, just a fun one I'm going to throw your way. What have you heard about the Italian conspiracies investing in Bitcoin?
Yeah, Tone was joking about asking if the Medici family, which basically invented the banking and finance back in the old days, is investing in Bitcoin or not. We don't have any specific news of the Medici family right now. In Milan, there was the Sforza family, which is older than the Rockefeller, way older.
Okay, thank you, Giacomo. Jimmy, moving to you with mempool. I do not have the link up right now, but I will try to find it in a second. If you want to speak to it, though.
JOCHEN.
Okay.
It starts with that. I don't know if. There you go.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't actually looked at it because it's been so low for a while. Oh, well, okay. So this is the third week in a row, 8 a.m. Monday. There's like a huge volume of transactions that just sort of come online. Obviously, there's a cron job by some company that causes a lot of transactions to enter the mempool. It looks like you can still get in for about 10 Satoshis per byte if you need it in the next block or two. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. These things come down. You can see that it went all the way down to 1 Satoshi per byte consistently over the weekend. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much. Just something's happening always at around 8:30 on Monday morning.
Hey, Jimmy, if I had to take like a wild guess, this could be GBTC related, right? Because it is closed on the weekends and it is the only like ETF kind of instrument. So it could be, everyone that put in their orders over the weekend in order to, sell their GBTC or buy.
Well, I don't think they do on-chain transactions. I could see the argument that maybe new shares are being added to GBTC every Monday. And they have to transfer them from some other account to the custodial account for GBTC.
Right, that's what I mean, and those would be on-chain transactions. But yeah, all right. I think it's price time, and everyone is curious. Let me go ahead and do that. Do a screen share. So it might be a little loud here right now, but it's okay. Before I go to price, once again, I will be at the Silicon Valley meetup over at Plug and Play tomorrow night. So please check that out. We have 291 people have signed up here in San Fran at Going. So check that out. I will be there tomorrow night over in Silicon Valley at the Plug and Play office. All right, so here's the price. So yesterday when I did my little thing, like a lot of people didn't like that video from from a birthday party out on a farm yesterday evening. But you know what? I did talk about the price, like in a 5-minute out of the 40-minute video. I talked about the price, and even though the price was rebounding up to 7,100, I warned people not to be over exuberant on it because the week had just started. And as long as this week stays within the bounds of last week, and right now you can see we're still within the bounds. So as long as we stay below last week's high of, what was last week's high? Last week's high was 7,500. Last week's low was 6,500. As long as we stay within the bounds, there's nothing to do here. Now, the moment we get close to the bottom of the 6,500, that's incredibly bearish. If we go up above 7,500, that's just barely bullish. Like the weekly momentum remains bearish, and I continue to look for a 9 on the weekly. So I'm continuing to look for 5 more weeks of downside, counting the current week, okay? And we have plenty of time to talk more about it as we get closer. Here's the daily chart. Now, yesterday when I did this video, we were breaking the high of yesterday. And I said, hey, according to the numerical indicator, and just the numerical indicator, there was a green 2 above a green 1, but I warned people. I thought I was going to mute. I thought I was going to be able to mute in time, but I didn't. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I am sitting outside. San Francisco ain't exactly warm. Anyway, sorry about that. And I did say that, hey, we have a green 2 trading above a green 1, but you have to be very, very careful. And I specifically pointed to the continuous movement of lower highs and lower lows. Here's a lower high on 312. Here's a new low on 317-ish. Here's a lower high on 322. Here's a lower low on 41. There was a lower high a few days ago on 43. Then there was a lower low on 46. And looks like we just made a new lower high. And I said, until we go above this green line at 7,500, nothing about the bear trend, weekly or daily, is changing whatsoever. So my targets remain at 6,000. At the moment we get back to 6,000, it creates this double bottom scenario, which I do not believe will hold, but I will talk more about it as we get there. But right now, the view has turned back to bearish. We have 12 more hours on this day. But if we're breaking this red line on a red 2 below a red 1, that is a beautiful shorting opportunity with a stop loss right at the prior high of 71 or 7,200, wherever we were this morning. So it all remains very, very bearish. Here's the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart has just triggered a bearish trade. Though after such a big 1 candle, I don't like to chase. However, here's your 4-hour chart. I mean, it doesn't look good at all, guys. It really, really doesn't. Here is the 12-hour chart. Again, the 12-hour chart did not even have the mustard to get back to its 50-period moving average. Did not even have the mustard to get back to the prior high. It just, like, this does not look good. I'm just going to extend this red line. This is a best fit line. Not exactly straight at the moment, actually. And maybe I should lower it a smidge. It's just a best fit line of all of the lows that's been happening. And you know my rules. We are spending way too much time along the bottom line of 67.50. When this line breaks, it's going to break to the downside with a vengeance. It's no different than what happened right here back on 328. You know, eventually the low breaks, and when it breaks, it goes down hard. We went from 77.50 straight down in 2 days to by $1,000. So I would not be surprised to see this repeat back down to 5,700. Now, I do have my old channels, down here somewhere. At this point, like I'm looking for 49.75 as my number to potentially rebound the price back to the upside. And if it doesn't, then we're going to talk about lower targets. That's pretty much it for me. I'll glance at the stock market. I don't know where it's going to open. Actually, I have to go to the futures. Or no, I'm sorry, it's open. I'm on the West Coast. Jesus, I forget where I am sometimes. Again, I'm not scared of the stock market yet. I'm sorry, guys. I know this looks like a bubble topping, but like I'm not convinced yet. So I'll probably do a traditional market video soon. That's pretty much it. And I think gold's still not doing anything. Now, gold is now spending way too much time in this 1300, 1350 area. So a breakout in gold to the upside could be massive. So I'm waiting for it to break, and then I'll probably be a gold bull for a little while. But this is also happening because of the stock market weakness. All right, I think I'm going off tangents away from Bitcoin, but that's my Bitcoin outlook, guys. So that's it for me on the price. Back to you, Leah. Close us out.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. Unfortunately, quite bearish news going on for Bitcoin prices, but maybe not for the S&P and for potentially gold in the future. Again, it's April 9th. World Crypto Network has us for iTunes. If you want to listen to this later, thank you guys so much. Giacomo.
Goodbye, everybody.
Jimmy.
This song is done.
And Tone.
Bye, guys. Good luck trading out there. It's a bit of choppy waters, and I'm sorry I couldn't bring you any good news on the price today.
Bye, everybody.
One good news is that it's cheap.
Yeah.
That's true.
Buy the dip.
Yeah. Bye, guys.